All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be breaking down the top prop bets for this Monday night matchup between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's go ahead and get into it. So as always, I like to start off with a quick game preview, guys. Looking at the game total, 45.5 total points. Really nothing much there in terms of the game script that we're going to do prop betting wise. I don't really care for betting on the game total as well. The point spread's a little bit interesting to me. 3.5 points, which I guess if I were setting the line, I would probably set it there as well. But I also think that the Chiefs are going to win by more than this, assuming that Xavier Worthy is active. Okay, the Jaguars have played really well as a team, but it's kind of been scrappy-ish, which the Chiefs have done so as well. But the offense looked so much better last week with Xavier Worthy back. And so if he's healthy in this game, I think that is a decent spot to attack. And so we are seeing Fliff, if you guys are someone that plays there, you can bet on that. But we are getting like minus 105 there on Hard Rock Bet. Most of the sites are kind of giving us that line for the Chiefs there. So I think that'd be the way to attack. So yeah, let's talk about Xavier Worthy, guys. So he is currently questionable. He has apparently like, there we go. His ankle swelled up. Okay. So they add him to the injury report. That is kind of crazy. Swelled up on the flight to Jacksonville. Wow. Okay. So that's a little bit more than I had seen earlier. Interesting. So he's currently questionable. You would expect him to play, though, in this game. You'd expect him to be able to get that figured out. It is worth calling out. He did end up playing 56% of the snaps, had a 71% route share, and obviously was involved heavily in the game plan. You would argue if he's healthy in this game that he would be even more involved in this game plan. Now, they didn't necessarily need him to be that much last week because it was basically a blowout in that game, especially once Lamar Jackson got injured. But Worthy is, to me, the player we want to be betting on the most. But let's just talk about if he's inactive. So if he's inactive, it won't really change the workload for Juju Smith-Schuster. Just on the season, Juju's averaging 47% of the snaps. The player that actually saw the biggest decrease in his snaps with Xavier Worthy back was Tyquan Thornton. So Thornton had been someone that played 72, 75, 76% of the snaps, and then saw 34, which I was actually a little bit surprised by. That could be a game plan thing where they just felt they could attack the short yardage routes more. And then you would obviously do that with Juju and Hollywood Brown a little bit more. Maybe they think the weakness in the Jaguars defense is more on deep balls. And if that's true, then maybe Worthy ends up playing more. But I do think that it probably will be, if Worthy's out, which I don't think he will be, but if he's out, it'd be Juju, Hollywood Brown, then Tyquan. Now, if Worthy's active, I do think it's going to be Juju, Worthy, Hollywood Brown. Okay. And then Tyquan. So just worth calling that out. And then that leads me to one of my favorite prop bets on the day. It's actually going to be Xavier Worthy to get over 4.5 receptions. We can place this bet on Underdog for him to get over 4.5 receptions. Again, he should just be heavily involved in the offense. I really don't get this one. So he ended up with 8 targets last week, only 5 receptions, but a lot of his touches were manufactured. Maybe we worried that he's going to get too many rush attempts potentially, but it's a weird one. And again, maybe he just ends up sitting and this ends up being an avoided bet. But I think this is one of the better ones that we were getting on the slate. Now, I do think it's worth calling out, guys, that the books are giving it a slight edge for the under. So it's a 50.56% likelihood for the under to hit. Typically we won't want to place a bet like that on Underdog or PrizePicks. Just we want to be placing bets where the overs, at least at the bare minimum, the bet that we're being told to bet on based off of the other books. But I do think that's more rooted in his injury. Maybe he aggravates it during the game and can't play. That's part of the situation as well. So it's a little bit risky, but it's one game. We're going to have to be a little bit risky to play some of our favorite bets. But then from there, guys, I do think Juju, again, his role probably won't change. His snaps should still be there, regardless of whether or not Worthy plays or not. And so we see in 3 out of the 4 games, he's been able to get over 3.5 receptions. And I get the Jacksonville Jaguars are a very strong defense, okay, but it is still Patrick Mahomes throwing the football. And the fact that this is a demon bet for him to get over 3.5 receptions, to me, is a solid bet. You could just end up going with him for a goblin of 2.5, but I think betting on him to get 3.5 receptions is actually the better way to go, because you are just betting on that roll being correct. Because if the roll is not correct, who's to say he's actually going to get 2.5 receptions, right? If that makes sense. Like, that's really the bet here, because if he has the roll where he's continuing to see 74% of the snaps, then he should be able to get over 3.5 receptions. So those two, I like a decent amount there for the Chiefs. And we just got to look at the top prop bets that we were getting in this game for the Chiefs. We're looking at the PrizePicks cheat sheet right now, guys. Isaiah Pacheco, actually, for over his fantasy score, up 6.5. Now, I kind of like him the least among the Chiefs players, or Chiefs running backs because they are kind of a three-headed monster right now. Kareem Hunt will probably get the most touches. Brashad Smith might see a little bit more work as well. And if we just look at their stats from last week, guys, Hunt had 44%, Pacheco 37%, and Smith 26%. There's rumors that Smith could see a little bit more work. I'm not exactly seeing that in this game particularly. I do think as the season progresses, you will. But it is worth calling out, like Pacheco does get like the more valuable touches. So I think if we're betting on someone to score a touchdown, it somewhat makes sense to maybe think of Pacheco in that regard. I don't necessarily like betting on Pacheco. If you guys do that, worth calling out. 53% likely for that to hit. And then we see the rest of the bets that we're getting in this game. Really, to me, not that worthwhile when we're looking at the board. So then let's go ahead and just take a peek at the top prop bets that we are getting for the Jaguars. Okay, the best one, Brenton Strange, go over 3.5 receptions. This is a bet that I agree with as well. And if we just look at his game log, obviously he's been very consistent, especially thus far this season, guys. So 6, 3, and 4 receptions thus far. If this is a game where they are playing from behind, again, they're only 3.5-point dogs in this game. I would say that, again, I think that's a little bit too low. I think it could be closer to 5.5. Could be wrong about that. Again, if Worthy's out, that could be wrong. And the Chiefs defense is pretty good against opposing tight ends, but if we look at Brenton Strange, he's kind of been the top pass catcher there for Patrick Mahomes really over the past year and a half now. And so I do expect that role to continue there for him. He's like the only reliable option, especially in regards to Trevor Lawrence throwing him the football because Trevor Lawrence has been a little bit hit or miss. And so this ends up being one of my favorite bets. I was very happy to see that the books were also telling us to bet the over here. So a pretty good bet there for PrizePicks and Underdog. And then from there, we kind of look at the rest of the bets that we're getting. Not really big edges there from that point on. Now, I do want to go ahead and talk about some of the other receivers for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, so the Parker Washington Demon bet's certainly interesting because we know that De'Ami Brown is going to be back in this game. Okay, De'Ami Brown's highly likely to get 2 receptions in this game. I would argue him to get over like 2.5 receptions ends up being a pretty solid bet there as well. But the issue that we have between those two is we really don't know what the snaps are going to be like for those two. Okay, so let's just go through it, guys. So week 1, Brown had 71%, Parker Washington only 26% of the snaps. Week 2, Brown 80%, Washington 24%. Brown got injured in week 3. Parker Washington ended up having a very good game, playing 71% of the snaps. Last week, guys, he ended up playing 85% of the snaps, didn't do much in that game. And that was the game Brown was out. And so is this going to be maybe a split between the snaps, or are one of them going to dominate the snaps? And so if one of them dominate the snaps, I think this could be a worthwhile risky bet that we could make. So we could bet on either Brown to get over 3.5 receptions or Parker Washington to get over 3.5 receptions. I will say neither of those are locked to hit just because, again, Trevor Lawrence has not really been the best. But as long as we can hit on one of those players playing 80% of the snaps, I'm willing to place a bet on them to get over 3.5 receptions. So, whatever bet slip I give you guys, you could run out an additional bet with Parker Washington over receptions. And then you could also do that with De'Ami Brown over 3.5 receptions as well. That could be a very viable route to go to increase your payout there. Then while we're talking about receptions as well, I do want to talk about Travis Etienne. If this is a game where they actually end up playing from behind, I think Allen, who's kind of the third string running back, kind of the passing down back, he could end up being someone that actually gets a little bit more work there as well. I would probably want to bet on him to get over a reception if we were getting that. That's LaQuint Allen, who has had a reception in 3 of the 4 games thus far this season. So kind of an interesting bet. Again, if they're playing from behind, I don't hate that bet there as well. Then I will say it's kind of like all in terms of the bets that I see edges with, because I don't think we can rely on kind of the passing game for either team to be great. These defenses are pretty good. And so I probably would be looking at more under bets for some of the rest of the bets that we are looking at. So if you guys like some of those under bets, by all means, go ahead and use those. But typically speaking, my brain works more for over bets. And so I'm going to give you guys my 3 favorite over bets. And so let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day. But before we do that, guys, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so before. And so here we go, guys, a 3-bet slip. Worthy over 4.5 receptions. Again, if he's active in this game and not injured, I do like that bet a decent amount. We know that sites like PrizePicks Underdog do reboot players if they get injured in the first half. So, I don't want him to get injured, but maybe that's a variable that could help us. And then Brenton Strange get over 3.5 receptions. Again, if you guys want to attach like Parker Washington and Brown in 2 separate slips for the over 3.5 receptions, I don't mind that. And then Juju as well. betting on his role staying the same. And if his role is going to stay the same, again, I like him more for over 3.5 receptions there as well. Now that's going to do it for this video, guys. Appreciate you being here. Again, leave a like on the video. That does help out the channel a bunch, and that is appreciated. If you guys would like access to any of the prop tools, PrizePicks Optimizer, PrizePicks Cheat Sheet, Underdog Optimizer, Underdog Cheat Sheet, head on over to 9to5sports.com, including that is a bunch of NFL DFS tools as well as fantasy golf tools as well. Thank you for watching, guys. Good luck, and as always, let's keep cashing.